Hey, fifth graders, it's Mr. Johnson. Hope you're doing well. I'm excited to teach you about space through some short videos based on lessons from Earth and Sun from the SPOS Science Resources. This is the unit that we are scheduled to do this spring. And each video, I'll give you some things to think about and an activity to do at home. You might want to have some paper or a journal and a pencil ready because I'll probably ask you to write down some of your thinking too. So far in science this year, we have been focusing on only one planet in our solar system, the most important one, the most interesting one. That's right, Earth. We've learned about things like food webs, energy chains, the water cycle. Now we're going to think bigger, way bigger, and talk about the thing that makes all of that possible. What puts the energy into the food chain? What drives the water cycle? The sun. Let's think right now about what we already know about the sun and maybe some things we want to learn about the sun. In fact, we're going to get our paper and make a KWL chart. And in the K section, you're going to write 3 things that you know about the sun. And in the W section, 3 things you want to know, 3 questions you have about the sun, something you've always wondered about. We'll leave the L section alone because that's what we learned. We're going to write that, we're going to add that in after this lesson. So go ahead and pause the video and I'll be waiting here. Okay, all done with that? Why don't you hold up your KWL charts to the screen so I can take a look. It looks like most of you know that our sun is a star. And that's right, it is a star. It's not the biggest star, it's not the smallest star, but it's our star because it is so close to us. That's why it looks so big in the sky. It's closer to us than any of the other stars. We're going to learn a lot about the sun in this lesson and the next couple lessons. If you have questions in your W chart that don't get answered in this video, make sure you email them to me or let me know on Teams so I can get those questions into the next video. One of the cool things about the sun is that we can learn so much about it from observing something right here on Earth, our shadows. Here's my focus question for you. How and why does your shadow change during the day? Okay, here's an activity for you. All you need is a piece of chalk and a helper. Get outside, if it's sunny at all, and find an open space that's not too close to buildings or trees. The rays of the sun are traveling 93 million miles to get here, and at light speed that takes about 8 minutes. So when you look at the sun, that's actually the sun 8 minutes ago. Whoa, time out. Don't look at the sun. Never look at the sun, because that would be really bad for your eyes. And after traveling 93 million miles, you have the power to stop those light beams only inches from hitting the Earth by creating a shadow. Okay, here's what you do. Strike a pose and then have your helper make a chalk outline of your shadow, starting with your feet. Write the time on your shadow. If it's a sunny morning right now, go out and do that. The next step is to wait until the afternoon and do it again. Do you think your shadow is going to be the same, or do you think it'll be different? Why? Okay, it's 4 hours later. I'm going to put my feet in the exact same spot, and then I'm going to strike the same pose, and I'm going to get my outline. What happened here? My shadow moved and it changed shape. I know I didn't move, so my shadow changed because the sun's position in the sky was changing. It would help right now to think about the cardinal directions. You already know them: north, south, east, west. I'm using my phone app to find north, but you might have a real compass in your house. I'm going to draw the direction of north. So there's north, and the opposite of north is south. And to the right of north is east, and the opposite of east is west. It helps me to think of a map in the United States. We live on the west coast, which is to the left. So in the morning, my shadow was pointing more to the west, but that means the sun was in the east. This is because shadows always point away from the sun. In the afternoon, my shadow was pointing more to the east, so the sun was in the west. Let's make a model of this. I'm going to use this mini Mr. Johnson.
Hey, fifth graders.
I'll make him face north, and then I'll use a lamp as the sun, rising in the east and setting in the west. You can see that the shadow is always pointing away from the sun, but also notice how it's longer in the morning when the sun is lower in the sky, shortest in the middle of the day, and long again at sunset. Here's another activity for you. Take a piece of paper and title it Sun Tracker. Make a vertical line and then a perpendicular horizontal line. Label your cardinal directions. Go outside to a sunny spot away from buildings, make sure it's pointing north, and place something in the center.
Hey, fifth graders.
Mark the top of the shadow and the time, and then go back out to the same spot several times during the day to record the changes. Just make sure your paper is always in the same spot. Take a picture of your sun tracker and email it to me. One note though, you've probably heard that the sun is at its highest point at noon, and that would be when your shadow would be pointing due north. Well, you remember back in March when we changed our clocks 1 hour for daylight savings? Because of that, the sun's highest point right now is at 1 p.m. One more thing, we've been talking about what your shadow does where we live in the northern hemisphere, but one of your 5th grade classmates is watching this from the southern hemisphere in Australia. Abe, this is for you. You'll need to face the other direction when you do your sun tracker because in the middle of the day your shadows will be pointing south. We'll talk about that in the next lesson. So I think we've observed enough evidence to answer our focus question. How and why does your shadow change during the day? We learned that your shadow starts long, pointing west in the morning, gets short and points north at midday, and gets long and points east in the late afternoon. This is because of the sun's changing position in the sky. I also want to start your thinking for the next lesson. Is the sun really traveling across the sky while we sit still, or is something else happening? What causes day and night, and what about the seasons? Well, tune in next time. Here's something fun to do now that you know more about shadows. Open the Chrome browser to go to Google Earth, or you can just use the app. Find a building or a landmark anywhere in the world. The taller the better. I'll start at the Eiffel Tower in Paris. You'll need to turn off the 3D building setting, which you can find in the map style menu. From here, you can see where the shadow is pointing when this photo was taken from a satellite. It's pointing west, which means the sun was in the east and this picture was taken in the morning. Let's go to another landmark, this time in our country, in our nation's capital. Go to the Washington Monument. One thing you want to do is make sure it's pointing north. You can click that little compass at the bottom. I can see that this was also taken in the morning because the shadow is pointing west, but it's pointing further north, so I think that was more like 11 a.m. or so. Let's go to Grant. Now, Google Earth doesn't have the new Grant in there yet, but one thing is the same, and that's the big tree that we have on the south end of our school. You can see this picture was taken around noon because the shadow is pointing due north. One more. Let's go down to San Francisco, California, to the Golden Gate Bridge. And when I look at the shadow from the bridge, I can see this picture was taken in the afternoon because the shadow is pointing more towards the east. So explore Google Earth and find more places and you can figure out when the pictures were taken. If you want to learn more about space, these are some really great websites to go to. And here are some fun shadow challenges you can do with your family when you're outside. Thanks, and see you next time. Why are you still watching?